When talking about Quentin Tarantino, he can be described as arrogant, hyper-energetic, and maybe even an asshole. But on the other hand, there's no doubt he's a revolutionary screenwriter and director. After more than 30 years of making iconic movies, there's no doubt in anyone's mind, much less his, that Quentin Tarantino is a genius when it comes to making movies.
His horizon is enormous, and he can sort of fathom things or test the dark in subjects where you say, where does he have it from?
When you see a Quentin Tarantino movie, you know you're going to be incredibly entertained, and there's going to be things and elements not only character-wise and story-wise, but music-wise that are just going to be completely shocking and take a second to adjust to, but
He knows how to steal like an artist. He rewrites genres, directs in his own unique style, and doesn't care what anyone says about his work. He's not just a director or a writer. When he's on set, he's in complete engagement. He's following every little detail down to how the actor blinks. He has his own style of dialogue. He includes casual conversations with subtle camera movements to make it seem like an everyday type of conversation. Take Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. They're all filled with casual conversations that seem pointless to the plot, but keep the audience engaged and educated on what the characters are like. The dialogue is sometimes explicit, but it feels natural.
You know, man, I hate to be the kind of nigga that do a nigga a favor and then bam, hit the nigga up for a favor in return, but I got to be that kind of nigga.
But Tarantino wasn't always this genius director. Born in Tennessee but growing up in southern Los Angeles, Quentin was separated from his father, Tony Tarantino, and grew up only with his mother, Connie Zastopil. Quentin loved cinema from the minute he was born. He loved films, he loved everything about movies, the dialogue, the action, but most of all, the actors. Growing up, Quentin always wanted to be an actor. His whole family would always tell him he was more of a director, but he always wanted to be the person on screen that the world sees. Quentin was a film genius. He did terribly in school, despite having an IQ of over 160. He was never good at reading, writing, or math, but he knew everything there was to know about movies.
I could spell anything. I couldn't remember anything, all right? But I could go to a movie and I knew who starred in it, who directed it, who directed it, who wrote it, everything.
As a teenager, Quentin wanted to pursue something in film, so he dropped out of school at just 16. Quentin's vast knowledge and passion for film led him to work at an adult movie theater after dropping out. He lied about his age to get the job, but at that point all he cared about was being surrounded by things that related to film. When he was working at the adult video store, he would often go to this movie store, Video Archives, and talk with the owner. The owner would see him and talk with him so much that he eventually offered him a job. At Video Archives, he would meet Roger Avery. Avery and Quentin loved working there because they could check out free movies and were also constantly surrounded by film buffs and people they shared interests with. Some years later, Quentin would begin working on his first film with his friend Craig Hayman, My Best Friend's Birthday. He would write dialogue when he wasn't working, and he was able to finish the script quickly due to how much he liked writing. During the shooting process, he could barely afford to film, so he would get into the cycle of shooting some of the movie and then saving up his money to keep shooting the rest.
I would get $200 or so, and then we'd go off and shoot for the weekend. And then we'd run out of money, and then I would go back to work again, and then eventually I would just keep piecing it together.
My Best Friend's Birthday took over 3 years to make. Quentin put his blood and sweat into this project just for it not to take off or make any money, partially because most of the film was lost in a fire. He was frustrated, but he didn't give up just yet. He would eventually start working with Roger Avery and came up with scripts for new films titled True Romance and Natural Born Killers, which would later be sold off by Avery and be made by other Hollywood directors. For the time being, Quentin felt like nothing was working out. That was until he started working on his brand new project, Reservoir Dogs. Quentin Tarantino started working on Reservoir Dogs in 1989. He initially had a very low budget and a mediocre cast, but all that changed when he connected with actor Harvey Keitel through his friend Lawrence Bender. Harvey Keitel liked the idea so much that he ended up funding the project taking Tarantino's measly $30,000 all the way up to $1.5 million.
He put it in Harvey's hands at the Actors Studio. 3 days later, Harvey calls me on the phone and says, "Hi, this is Quentin Tarantino. I'm Harvey Keitel. And I want you to know I think the script is magnificent. It's absolutely magnificent. I would like to be part of it. I really would. I'd like to even help produce it if I possibly could."
Along with this new budget, Tarantino was able to cast actors such as Steve Buscemi, Tim Roth, and Michael Madsen. Filming began in 1991, and despite having a bigger budget, filming was still very simple. Most of the movie takes place in one room, and despite being a classic, you can tell most of the shooting was very low budget. The whole movie was filmed in just 35 days, and after its release, Tarantino finally had his breakthrough. He could not have had a better debut film. He was ecstatic that his hard work finally began to pay off. Reservoir Dogs initially made $2.8 million worldwide, which was still a success due to his very low budget. It was criticized for being very violent, but as usual, Quentin didn't give a fuck. After the success from Reservoir Dogs, Tarantino went dormant. Everyone thought he was going to begin working on a new film right away, but he thought differently. He instead went to Amsterdam to celebrate. He spent 6 months with his good friend Roger Avery in Amsterdam, but after celebrating, he began working on his new film, Pulp Fiction. Tarantino finished writing Pulp Fiction in 1993 with help from Roger Avery. He initially wanted to recast most of the Reservoir Dogs cast, as evident when you see Harvey Keitel, Steve Buscemi, and Tim Roth all in the movie. For the rest of the cast, however, Tarantino had other people in mind. He cast John Travolta, who at the time was an actor with a dying career. Many doubted Pulp Fiction's success because of this irregular decision. He was also able to cast Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson due to how famous he got off of Reservoir Dogs. Tarantino soon began shooting Pulp Fiction. It only took around 3 months to film with a low cost of only $8.5 million. It contained many references to other films, and Tarantino showed off his film knowledge all throughout the movie, taking inspiration from many other movies. After its release, Pulp Fiction was the shit. It made over $200 million worldwide, won many awards, one of the most notable being the Academy Award for Best Screenplay, with a hilarious speech from both Tarantino and Roger Avery.
You know what? I was trying to think, I think this is probably the only award I'm going to win here tonight. So I was trying to think, maybe I should just say a whole lot of stuff right here, right now, just get it all in my system. Because I thought about all year long, everything building up and everything, and just blow it all just tonight. Just say everything. But I'm not. Thanks.
Pulp Fiction rewrote genres. It redefined cinema. Tarantino was now the hottest director in the game. After making Pulp Fiction, Tarantino would begin working on his next piece, 4 Rooms. There's nothing special about the film really. It failed miserably and barely broke even. It featured Bruce Willis and Tim Roth, but might be Tarantino's biggest failure as it has just 13% on Rotten Tomatoes. Next on Tarantino's list was a different type of movie, his first and only movie based on a book. Jackie Brown was released in 1997, 2 years after 4 Rooms. Featured Pam Grier, who Tarantino was a longtime fan of from the 70s and 80s movies she featured in. The movie also featured Samuel L. Jackson, Robert De Niro, and Robert Forster. The movie was slightly criticized for being too long. It didn't feel like Tarantino's other more fast-paced movies. The characters were introduced for almost half the movie, and many felt like that was too long.
Introduced in a movie kind of way. I mean, like the movie's 2.5 hours long. The first hour of the movie is just getting to know who these people are. The first hour is just living with them.
Jackie Brown had moderate success when it was released. In the eyes of film critics, it's one of Tarantino's more mediocre projects. The next film, however, would take over 6 more years to release. It would be one of Tarantino's best. Kill Bill featured Uma Thurman, one of Tarantino's favorite actresses that also featured in Pulp Fiction. It cost $60 million to make and was crazy violent with insane special effects. Kill Bill made over $300 million worldwide and broke records at the time. It was Tarantino's most successful movie yet, and he had the highest grossing opening weekend of his career. It was hailed a modern masterpiece and labeled an iconic action film. Next up was Death Proof. It was similar to Kill Bill in the way that it had female action stars. The film was another action movie, which seemed to be Tarantino's specialty, but ultimately did not make much money. Tarantino quickly bounced back from the mediocrity of Death Proof, however, and started working on his first historical film, Inglourious Bastard. featuring Brad Pitt, Christoph Waltz, and Eli Roth. It took place in Nazi Germany in World War II and looked at an American army squad called the Bastards that specialized in killing and scalping Nazis. It was another violent film, but it was unlike any other war movie. 2/3 of it was in languages other than English, and it made war epic, sad, and cruel all at the same time. It didn't just give one perspective on war like other movies did. Christoph Waltz was one of the more talked about actors in the movie. Tarantino sort of revived his career. He was basically a nobody before getting the role. Quentin cast him because he needed a German to play the role, but not just any German, one that could speak German, English, French, and Italian.
Hansland is played by Christoph Waltz, a German actor.
Yes, yeah,
a German actor who was not at the height of his career.
No. He's a TV actor in Germany.
And in fact, he said at Cannes, he basically, in a very emotional moment, said you had given back his career.
To this day, Inglourious Basterds remains one of Tarantino's most iconic films due to the unique casting and engaging story. For his next films, Django Unchained dropping in 2012, The Hateful Eight in 2015, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in 2019, Tarantino would continue directing historical films. These iconic films captured a time in history but portrayed very different and unique stories. They solidified Tarantino's career and further proved his genius when it comes to redefining genres and making movies. Quentin Tarantino may be the most unique director in cinema. He has such a different way of making movies. He may be the smartest director just by the way he redefines genres, steals like an artist, and turns normal dialogue into iconic lines. He never followed the rules of cinema, he made his own. He never even went to film school. He's 9 films deep in his career, and with only one left to go, it feels like he just can't mess it up.